with the commercial office of Nielsen Global Media. So our local Nielsen team report up into Matt, who looks after most of the markets, primarily outside of the US. So really understands, I guess, all the other markets and how they operate. We have been working with Nielsen from a currency point of view for many years. Even within sort of the last 10 years, we've had to rebuild products for changing consumption and changing technology a number of times, and we're undergoing one of the biggest rebuilds in the Nielsen currency, and I know Ipsos are doing similar things in the UK for the UCOM contract to make a currency not reliant on cookies. So the benefit, I guess, of having traditional media measurement is having strong panels in place, but we've also been lucky enough to have a hybrid model and feeding sort of digital and tag data in the mix to particularly help with that scale of understanding unduplicated reach and frequency. So there's a lot of work being done locally and globally to rebuild currency products. I'm going to hear from Matt on that, but you will hear from us and Nielsen locally in relation to new products and new data sets that'll be launched very early in 2021. So there'll be a lot of information in market, a lot of even though the philosophy will remain the same, some differences in data sets coming through. So always reach out to the IAB if you've got any questions on what's coming through. And meanwhile, I will play the video and let's hear from Matt. Morning, Matt.
Good morning, Gai.
Welcome
Greetings
to
from London.
Thank you for joining us for the Measure Up conference. We're hoping to have you in person, but next year, if not next year, the year after, we'll get you down.
Great.
We work very closely with Nielsen locally, the local team. I'd love to chat to you, I guess, about some of the global perspective that you're seeing, as well as some of the things that I know you're involved with the local team for measurement in our market. So let's start at that broader piece. And I guess the first question is almost going to be too big, but then we'll come back in. So as we know, everyone in this space, whether you're on buy, sell side, everyone in between, is looking at rebuilding, changing what signals they're using, browser check changing, privacy changes around the world. All of it's coming, which I try and think of as exciting opportunity to rebuild this industry. You're working for a huge global company. I know you're looking at different. You look after international, so you've got a whole lot of different markets. How are you trying to rebuild for such a wide? Morning, Matt. Sorry about that, everyone.
Good morning, Gai.
Welcome
Greetings
to the
from London.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the products.
Well, let me assure you, the disruption you're seeing, you're not alone with. So if misery loves company, it is a global phenomenon right now. But a lot of this, I'd say the majority of this disruption is centered around protecting online privacy. And we're seeing it manifest in many different ways. But if I had one phrase, it's all about consumer privacy. And as you said, there's browser security changes, like we see with Firefox. And device manufacturers are putting more stringent security, to prohibit, device identification, the deprecation of third-party cookies, publishers implementing new business rules, restricting off-platform tracing, and what that centers on is everybody wants to respect and protect, the relationship they have with the consumer. So this is driven, I think, the majority about that. But it makes it more difficult for us to understand the audience from frequency, duplication, and particularly across multiple platforms. And we're going to see more things like this ahead. So I don't see the concern about personally identifiable information ceasing. It is about consumer privacy. And we want to be supportive and be sensitive to protecting that privacy. It's always been a core part of the trust they have with a measurement company or any model. So when we look at our products, it's privacy by design. In fact, privacy is the design. So our priority is sort of threefold. Investing in creating methodologies that are independent of cookies, which you well know about, and creating proprietary approaches, for device identification, and decreasing our reliance on third-party demographics. We've got to hit all three of those in order to ensure we respect consumer privacy and that we're able to provide and maintain, consistent measurement.
So I'm not sure if I like to put myself in different people's shoes. So if I was Nielsen, or I guess a lot of the traditional research companies, I'd be happy and sad. I guess happy that I had old school panels, I guess. So, that I've got as a base some compliant, privacy compliant things, but I'm not sure when you're rebuilding different products, if that, if it's still as hard. So I guess what's the role that you see panels in terms of in measurement going forward? There's been a lot of talk about, the panel is back.
Right.
What do you see? I guess, do you see panels still playing a huge role, and can they really do the job that we need to in a fragmented market?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the fragmentation term, because fragmentation continues to challenge, how effective, panels are in providing some kind of stable read of an audience, on any given day. And, so we vacillate, and we obviously look at and straddle between opt-in panels and probabilistic panels, so you basically need both. But with opt-in panels alone, they can't really serve the market on their own because there's the risk about representation. So they're definitely not as useful as probabilistic panels, but regardless of the pros or cons of either of them, we believe they both remain, sort of at the core of our measurement strategy. And we're seeing that, everybody's thinking the role of these panels are going to change. And yes, they will change, but we still need to take advantage of what we consider to be the truth that we observe in the panels. And so there's sort of like old school modeling, things that we grew up with, like weighting and scaling and modeling off of one point in day or time, one day in time that you can, project forward, and that doesn't do enough to overcome fragmentation. So the good news is the advances in new school modeling, utilizing bigger data sets, machine learning, artificial intelligence, that's helping us to understand, the richness of longer term behavior in a panel, so that you can illuminate, a trend over time and not just observe, one particular signal. So rather than the panel observation being any given day, we can train our models, the probabilistic models, to use more observations over time. So the new models are observations over time and predicting on observations rather than one particular day or daily event.
Okay, so
we're not going to give up on weighting and scaling, but we can use the best of artificial intelligence, of modeling over time, and that's what our data science. That's why we have an army of data scientists to work on things like that.
And I guess, we've had different types of probabilistic modeling from, day dot in the industry, and I guess there's been two angles, I guess, in digital. Well, with panels, you've had your weighting and old school modeling, but also in programmatic, there's a lot of lookalike modeling, and so it's just a whole lot of different models, I guess, and it's making sure the base of that model is, really, really robust.
Yeah, and I think the early days of programmatic were, gee, this just looks like a direct response model. This looks like what I did with direct mail 20 years ago, but that true has evolved. So, the models can refine and learn from it, from whatever results they've had. Yeah. So, it's an evolution, not a revolution. You don't throw out what does work from prior experiences, but, we do benefit from utilizing, more trended data than just observing one point in time.
So talking about, I guess, the Australian market, and I guess this would be relevant for some of the other markets that you're working on at the moment. So we had much fanfare in our market probably 5 years ago with the launch of digital content ratings as our currency, going from monthly, a hybrid model that had panel and volumetric data coming from the publisher side, going to daily data, weekly data, very granular demographics on every site, app, platform, etc. I know our measurement council locally, with all the publishers and a lot of agency representation, are busy working with your local team and your global team to rebuild that, I guess, ahead of necessary changes, which is great, and looking to launch something new in February. Tell us a little bit, what are the main, as you see it, what are the main changes coming for our market, and hopefully it matches what we see locally.
Yeah, first of all, there was great fanfare when we launched DCR in Australia. And you know that strong Nielsen connection between Sydney and New York, and we're very proud of that connection and the services that we've launched there. So it was, and it still is, a great global example of how you can measure content. But as mentioned, earlier when we were just talking, the privacy and tech changes are driving us to obviously rebuild this and rebuild it quickly. The remainder of the year, we will be developing and testing and reviewing the first iterations of this methodology. And we are introducing those products first in Australia. So, for the ratings from the start of 2021, and you know most of this, but we'll be shifting to the new DCR, digital content rating methodology. We're highly engaged with your measurement council, to review and preview the data. And while the shift, we'll see some principal changes into the product coverage and its features. Because we are launching something totally new. We'll ensure that we're insulated from the impacts of privacy. We have to make sure that is a tenet of what we deliver. So our DCR delivery will be split in two parts. There will be the overnight volumetrics, now including, video content delivered every day, for all tag publishers in the market. And then there'll be monthly reach delivered each month to help layer on the competitive analysis of the audience size and profile. And this will cover, the entire market, irrespective of whether a publisher participates, in tagging. And ensure that we quantify the market level trends. So that's sort of a mouthful there. On the planning side, from mid-October, we're going to expand the release of the digital content planning. What I sort of refer to as the syndicated respondent level data solution to the whole market. And we've been previewing this data with the IAB Measurement Council as well. And we're almost ready to go live. So this will give, the enhanced digital planning data, that's more closely aligned to DCR, and will power, the media planning across both the buy and sell side.
Right. So we'll have the planning data, which will have with the respondent level data. So we'll be able to do duplication across properties, using it in other data sets like your CMV and locally with the Emma print products. So those more accurate audience numbers, which are
that's an important point about CMV as well, and that's sort of Australia's been a beachhead on that as well, about applying. In so many markets, it's so funny. People end up sort of dismissing the importance of lifestyle data, or any other data sets. And I really have to hand it to Australia, because as you know, I see 50 different markets. They really understand the importance of marrying data sets like CMV with currency data sets to give a rich and robust, then you can create, your own targets that way, so then you're not necessarily beholden to somebody's definition of what it is.
We just need to eventually work out ways to get it into programmatic and all other areas. So we're all sort of looking at the same data to an extent.
That's a great next step. That's a great idea. So
I'll leave that with you. If you could solve for that, that'd be great.
You have my commitment. I'll help you with that, because I've seen so much stuff that shouldn't be traded programmatically on that, you know, we can help clean that up together.
Yeah, it's a good time for data transparency and accuracy. So we've talked a lot about, I guess, tag publishers. The market's talking endlessly, quite rightly, about first-party data. So a lot of large publishers have obviously got their own data sets, as do clients. If you were a smaller publisher who possibly didn't have, you've got a direct relationship with consumers because they come to your website, but you might not be collecting actual logged in data for everyone. How do we ensure that those smaller media owners still have accurate audience data and, I guess, you know, can get on plans?
Right. This is a great question, and this is one that I sort of personally feel passionate about. Maybe because I'm always for the smaller player or the underdog. You know, I'm never for the one that's definitely going to win. I'm always for the, you know, I want an egalitarian and equal, you know, opportunity for all. But, you know, it's really sort of a simple answer. You know, for a long time now, the best way for a publisher to prove or represent their audience in any currency measurement is to participate in tagging. You know, so you have to tag, you know, and fragmentation of content across all the screens and distribution options, you know, all of that, tagging will help ensure that we can count appropriately, you know, that we can light up the publisher's content. So whether it's text or video, regardless of the size, delivered on an owned platform or through an off-platform channel, you know, tagging covers it. It may not be, you know, the answer everybody's looking for, but it also helps because it doesn't necessarily have to be about audience size. You know, we know that's not always, you know, the winning story or the winning angle, particularly for the medium-sized publisher. You know, the measurement, you know, can be supported by metrics and demographics, you know, to enable and help the niche publishers to pinpoint their best audience. You know, could be based on something like engagement, you know, time spent on a property, you know, or could be the ability to just find, and as we were talking about earlier, you know, target the difficult to reach audiences. So tagging.
Okay, clear message, that's good. And last one, and really easy one to solve, cross-media measurement, which we've only been talking about for a few decades. Right. There seems to, I don't know if I say this every year because, you know, but there seems to be, again, I guess a more active conversation. A lot of the discussions over the last 10 years have been quite theoretical. And we seem to be, I guess, because we are rebuilding everything, you know, whether it be identity solutions, currency solutions like yours. But we're seeing, I guess, moves by companies like the Trade Desk with universal IDs, LiveRamp with a lot of their audience sort of data, and the WFA, which is the advertiser-driven one, which we've heard about earlier this morning. What are you excited about and what worries you?
Yeah, this is you saved the best for last here, but look, what I'm excited about, I mean, the good news is that cross-media measurement is finally, I think, really receiving the recognition and the demand, you know, from advertisers, buyers, and sellers. It's receiving the attention it deserves. And it's receiving, the measurement companies are certainly being asked, you have to solve it. And the advertisers are speaking up and demanding accountability, you know, across all the platforms. And we've seen that very vocally in a lot of conferences just in the past month. You know, so I think this is good news, you know, that it, for everyone, the buyers, the sellers, and measurement providers, it's like, the gig's up, we've got to solve it. And cross-media measurement is core, obviously, to our strategy, as it would be to any measurement provider. But that is our North Star, deduplicated reach. It's a very simple concept, but that's everybody's working for. And that's the most important thing we'll deliver to all the markets we operate. Now, obviously, the initiative that's garnered the most attention has been the WFA. But there are many other industry groups that sort of, you know, jumped onto this or called attention to it. Like the ANA in the US is taking it very seriously, The joint industry, the broadcast JICs are taking it very seriously, and I hear from many lobbying groups representing all of them. So what's required? To do cross-media deduplicated measurement, it's really very simple. You need the cooperation from the platforms, the publishers, and the broadcasters. And 2 weeks ago in New York at the ANA conference, Mark Pritchard, the very visible CMO from P&G, stated that everybody has got to contribute their exposures, is basically what he was saying. He was asking for a level playing field and fairness for all. He called it out. Our CEO, David Kinney, spoke at the same conference and talked about how we are going to solve this as well. So there are, I would not say, it's not fair at this stage to say it's solved. There were some headlines a couple weeks ago saying we solved it. We're just not there yet, And for one example, is, planning and currency, I don't think can be separated. The two functions have to work off the same data sets, so that you can understand what you planned for, did you receive it? What you paid for, did you receive it? Or is there some kind of, slippage? And also the other thing is, everybody wants, or big advertisers and multinational publishers want global standards. We'd all like it to be that easy, but you have to consider the local market factors. If you're doing business in a market and there are established currency rules or metrics, you can have cross-country and pan objectives, but you have to respect the local implementation, because currency varies country by country. So nobody's trying to rewrite 50 plus countries. It has to be decided locally. And not everybody participated in the WFA initiatives. The smaller publishers, I don't think, had much of a voice at the table. We need the broadcasters in that model. So the virtual ID model has to be adopted by it. Now, I've mentioned some shortcomings here, but it's a really good start. They're good principles. We like their North Star objectives. But nobody is saying that cross-media measurement is done.
Yeah. At least, it's the most engaged I've seen advertisers, and probably because they've got their own data sets as well that I've ever seen. So at least that energy's behind it rather than just, sell side, go and solve it. So it's nice to see a collaborative effort more, whether it's this initiative or many others.
From Nielsen, you're going to see our work on the identity space, as you had said, continued emphasis and use of panels, because the WFA clearly said that panels are needed to correct for the imbalances of other models or data sets. So panel quality is going to critically be important, and implementing machine learning, and everything that we know about it. We've already talked about the challenges rather. Observing consumers, what they do and what they surf and what they watch just through a panel, is not enough. There's walled gardens, there's, device erosion, there's, Apple, the new iOS platform, it's going to make it even harder. Yeah. But we're all going to need some kind of long-lasting, resilient form of an identifier, And then as an industry, we're also going to have to get comfortable with consumers who are going to want to opt out, So we want to build these relationships, but we have to respect their ability, to opt out. So we're going to remain open, and we're going to, play it out and stay as nimble as possible. But I don't think it's fair to say that anybody has all the answers right now. But I'm very encouraged, in all my time in measurement, I've never seen the industry, as you had said, this engaged. So that's a really good start. And I think the WFA has woken everybody up.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming with DCR and the new data and all your other products, and continuing to work with Nielsen. Thank you for your time this morning, Matt.
Thank you, Gai. I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person, but I look forward to next year or the following year, and when we get back to a different cadence of life.
Fantastic. Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So hopefully you guys got a little bit of insight on, I guess, global product changes for currency and some of the developments that will be going on in the Australian market. We do, as the IAB, take our role as helping to guide the digital currency from a content point of view incredibly seriously. I know it's very hard to keep many media owners happy, but we do try and create, I guess, a level playing field and some comparable data that advertisers and agencies can use for their planning.